let's go to what would happen if Canada became the 51st state. Let's go.
Look, I called them Governor Trudeau because they should be the 51st state, really. It would make a great state. And
oh man, if Canada joins US, just get rid of Trudeau. Anyway, like, we don't fucking want him here. We want Pierre Poilievre, right? Like, Trudeau's just creating chaos. I've been here since 2019 and the country went to hell. By the way, I'm from Czech Republic, I'm from Europe, so my opinion on Canada becoming 51st state's gonna be definitely different than the opinion of Canadians, and I love Canada, not gonna lie about it, but what's going on over here, what the government's doing with Canada, it's horrible. And for me, living in this is my third country, yeah, it's definitely not a good thing what's going on here, and the way it's going. So unless Trudeau, you know what's funny thing? Once Trudeau announced that he's gonna resign, everyone was so happy about it, and I'm like, he didn't resign, dude. He just said if they find someone else to lead his Liberal Party, he's gonna resign. And look, it's been what, a month, 2 months? Nothing happened. He's still in power. The country's still going to hell. Now he's trying to deal with Trump instead of trying to deal with the mess he created here. Like, obviously, Trump's tariff and everything, it's not going to be good for Canada, but that's not a reason why people are freaking starving here, why we're living salary to salary, why I'm freaking stressed about everyday life, having family, having dogs, cats, right? Like, you never know. So it's not about Trump, it's about freaking liberals in power. And that's why I hope that there's going to be early election, because Trudeau's not going to leave, man. Like, if he was serious about it, he would be gone. So yeah, I want early elections and let's get conservatives back to power. But anyway, so what would happen if Canada became the 51st state without freaking Governor Trudeau? Okay, don't bring him back, dude. Come on, you have more common sense than this.
the people of Canada like it. If they became our 51st state, it'd be the greatest thing they could ever do. It'd be unbelievable. It would be a cherished state. I think Canada is going to be...
Oh, let me get rid of these subtitles. Yeah, there we go. So would people of Canada like it? I definitely feel like liberals can push them into that. I feel like if we have good government over here, we wouldn't even think about being a part of US. But to be honest, with what Trump's doing in the US and how he cares about his people, that's something we miss here. And if you talk to the Canadians, a lot of them will say that they hope Pierre Poilievre, which is conservative candidate for the prime minister, will change it, because otherwise the country is screwed. And me as an immigrant, my wife's Canadian, she's complaining how it looks here since liberals took over the power. Everyone's complaining. But yeah, me as an immigrant and as a breadwinner for the house, or my household, I hope it's gonna change as well. Because if he doesn't restore some quality of life and whatever Canada used to stood for, that's it. Like, people won't be able to afford housing, nothing. And I'm thinking about moving to US. I'm not gonna lie about that. Because, yeah, like I said, if something doesn't change over here, I won't even be able to afford to live in Canada. I can't even downsize, dude. Like, I pay a mortgage for the house that we bought. Pretty good deal, right? 3 years ago. But now, if I would want to downsize, I'm gonna still pay more. So yeah, like unless something changes, it would be better for us to become a 51st state. Like, really, if liberals remain in power, 51st state is the only hope for Canada. And I know it's hard to hear for the Canadians because you're a proud nation. And don't get me wrong, once I become citizen of Canada, I'm gonna be proud for that flag. I'm already proud. I'm proud to live in this country. But the way government is guiding it to hell, like, it's hard to be proud when you know it's gonna kill you, you know. But yeah, let's continue.
Be a very serious contender to be our 51st state.
Contender, that's fun. He's talking about it like it's competition, like, oh yeah, let these countries fight between each other and the winner will become our 51st state. That's not it. I mean, maybe he thinks about it in his head like, oh, Mexico and Canada are gonna fight each other, and the one who's gonna be winner is gonna be our 51st state. That's not how it works. But yeah, like I said, like most of the Canadians, I believe they're against it. But just give it a year or two with liberals, and they're gonna regret that we didn't try to go for it. So yeah, like my biggest hope is elections, get Trudeau out, get liberals out, and put the Canada back on the right path, right? The path to success. And hopefully it's going to be someone, I mean, like I said, I mentioned his name multiple times, Pierre Poilievre. Very, I don't know if I pronounce it correctly, but it's very similar to Trump. And I believe that he's going to take example of what Trump is doing. Because let's look at the oil. I live in the province that's rich on the oil. Like, I literally drive on the highway and I see so many oil fields, or whatever you call it, right? So why is gas still so expensive? And I'll tell you why. Because we're selling it out and then buying it more expensive. Why? Because it's business, right? Like, how is this normal, dude? Anyway, let's continue.
Listening to that, it's pretty fair to say that President Trump sounds a little more than mildly preoccupied with the idea of Canada possibly becoming the next state to join our union, the 51st state. Now, despite what the president just said, you heard him say the Canadian.
Pardon me, just got a little bit thirsty. Yeah, so that's what I was saying. That apparently most of the people oppose, right? It's true, I believe that. But at the same time, I believe that if you talk to them, eventually they're gonna say what I'm saying. That if liberals remain in power, it would be better for us to become 51st state. And it's hard to hear. Like, for me, being from Czech Republic, I was born when it was Czechoslovakia. And then we split, right? Just thinking about it now, like, would I want to become one country with Czechoslovakia again? No. And I get it. Like, we're like brothers and sisters, but at the same time, you don't really want to be like them, right? You don't really want to be part of this. Like, you don't want to... Even though it would be better for us, it's like each one of us has its pride, right? Like, we don't need this other country. Like, yeah, I know the Americans would probably take it as a huge win. Oh, okay, we got Canada, right? So Americans would be okay with it, but Canadians, there's that Canadian pride, and it's hard. It's hard because one thing is being proud Canadian, and the other thing is being able to afford gas and food and everything. So, like I said, if the Liberals will remain in power for next 4 years, we can only hope that the Trump will invite us.
Like it. A recent poll from YouGov found only 15% of Canadians said they supported merging with the United States.
Those 15% is going to be immigrants. I get that. Like I said, I would probably support it as well. I would be against it if the quality of life was the same as like 4 or 5 years ago, right? But the way it's going now, it's just crushing everyone. Like, we all know that there's no middle class anymore. It's just crazy rich people and then lower class or people on the edge of the poverty. And it's just like the scissors are just gonna get wider and wider unless someone does something about it. So something really needs to change.
Even so,
and I feel like the immigrants see this more than the born Canadians. Obviously, should immigrants have say to this? I don't think so. Like, I'm sorry. If there's gonna be any voting or something, it should be only people born in Canada. Because, yeah, it's their pride. It's their country. Like, obviously, I won't vote and everything for, like, politics, like, political parties, all of this, right? But speaking about Canada itself, if it should become the 51st state or no, I really think that the decision should be only to first generation of Canadians and above. Like, no one else should be able to vote on this.
Wondered if this were to ever happen, how it might change the U.S. politically, especially in the United States Congress. And we should note, thought experiment only, ladies and gentlemen, not remotely likely to happen. But let's start at some very basic numbers. What's the Canadian population? You see it there, 41.6 million. The overall U.S. population, 341.3 million. Canada, if it entered as a state, if, would be larger by population than my home state of California, currently the most populous state in the Union. All right, what might that mean in the United States Congress? Well, of course, this is a misnomer. There is no Canadian congressional membership, but if this were to happen, how might that affect? Well,
you know what? I'm actually curious, how would the population shift in Canada if it became 51st state? Because not everyone likes Canadian weather, and if they have an option to just move somewhere a little bit lower, let's say, Kansas, South Dakota, something like that, you know, like not necessarily Florida or LA, but just move a little bit lower for the weather. Like, would anyone even live in what's now Canada? Like, people would definitely stay in GTA. Some people would probably live in Alberta as well. Quebec, well, there's no hope for them, right? They would stay there, and well, we can only hope they would stay there. But yeah, anyway, like, I wonder if the land would still be occupied by 50, what did they say, 53 million people, 52, something like that. I don't think so. I think people would really move a little bit lower, and maybe Canada would become like tourist destination, like to go see the mountains, go skiing and all of it. Like I said, maybe Ontario would stay, but I feel like definitely most of the people would move a little bit lower.
Statisticians have looked at this, did the population, and said this would create 54 representatives for that state of Canada and 2 senators. However, it's important to note this. There's a 1929 law that says the number of seats in the House of Representatives must be capped at 435. So if these 54 representatives came from Canada, that means other states currently in our union would have to lose congressional representation, probably taking seats from Texas, Florida, California, maybe Illinois, maybe New York. We don't know where.
Ooh, they would not like it, losing the seats. But then there's another question. Like, in Canada, we have multiple provinces, right? is this still gonna be taken as a Canada as like one state, or what are we gonna do with the provinces and provincial law and all of this, right? Because it's pretty much like little states on its own.
So don't think of it as 435 plus 54. Think of it as 435 with 54 from Canada taken out of that. Talk about some nasty politics there. If it's one state, that's very simple, 2 senators. How might the voting patterns in Canada, as we currently understand them, influence how many of these 54 House seats, should they ever exist, might break down on party lines? Well, people who have looked at this have said, if it's 54, 36 of them more than likely would be Democratic. 18 of them would be more than likely to be Republican. How might that affect the balance of power?
I don't know, man. Like Democrats in Canada, like I really hope they're losing the support, because look, they're not doing anything good. Like even the immigrants are against them, and they allowed immigration. Like I have a lot of friends and colleagues that immigrated from India, right? And we all know that Trudeau really wanted them in the country, and they're against him. Yeah, because they see what he's doing here. Like everyone's quality of life is going down. So I really hope after the next election we'll see this in the statistics, that it's not going to be like, oh yeah, people are talking about it, but it's just people in my circle. I don't really have a circle. I talk to so many people, and everyone's against Trudeau.
From the Senate, well, you had 2 seats. That would take it to 49 to 53. Wouldn't affect it all that much. But look, let's be honest. It's kind of fun to see those 2 Canadian flags there. That's it. It's fun. But taking this, the Senate and particularly the House, and that party breakdown, and taking seats away from states like Florida, Texas, California, maybe others, all of that portends a kind of political dynamic that President Trump, once he actually sees it, if he ever were to see it, might not like nearly as much as it sounds like today.
I would.
Okay. I don't know if Trump would like it or no. Like, I really hope he's joking about Trudeau as a governor. And I think he is, because Trudeau's liberal. Yeah. Anyway, we're not gonna watch Doug Ford. Or should we? It's gonna be. Wait, is it Doug Ford? Okay, let's see.
Consider it a privilege to be taken over by the United States of America. That's what everybody else in the world wants.
Normally, this channel focuses on housing and transportation policy, but over the past month or two, something very disturbing has been happening that's hard to ignore. Canada has had our biggest ally, neighbor, and friend, the United States, become increasingly hostile, threatening economic warfare with punishing tariffs that would kneecap our economy.
This is catastrophic. I mean, let's be very clear. There's no way of sugarcoating this. This is just completely bad news. There's no redeeming good news here for Canada.
To rub salt in the wound, the U.S. president has made suggestions, really threats, of Canada becoming the 51st state, saying that we're not a viable country and taunting the prime minister by calling him governor.
Then, as has become his practice,
I mean, yeah, who can respect Trudeau? Like, I'm sorry, but he's a joke. The guy was an actor or the teacher of the actors. And somehow, I guess thanks to his dad, he became the prime minister. And don't get me wrong, I don't care what you did before, okay? As long as you're good in your position. But he's not. Like, what the hell? Look what he did to Canada. It's ridiculous. Like, it was... Like, people used to have Canadian dreams. All of us immigrants, we went here for a better life. To have better life. I didn't care how much I'm gonna work. But now I'm working like crazy, and there's nothing to show up for. Like, I'm still under the stress. I'm not only under the stress because of how much I work, but I'm under the stress because it doesn't make enough money. It doesn't make my life better. Like the groceries. 2 years ago, I went to the grocery store once a week. I left $200 for my groceries, pretty much full cart for me, my wife, and we used to eat a lot. Like, we used to eat a lot. But yeah, $200 a week. Pretty good deal, right? Now I have to go every 3 days, and I'm still paying $200 for the trip. So I pay $400 on groceries per week. Do you think my salary went higher? No. So it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And this is just, I'm not going to say who I work for, but we negotiated a new contract. And the salary increase is 3% every year, which turns out to be about $1 per year. Like, seriously? You expect that if you give me $1 extra, I'm still gonna be able to make it when the groceries became twice as expensive than the salary we had? The groceries twice as expensive, and our last salary increase was 3 years ago. Like, how is that gonna cut? I don't blame the company. Don't get me wrong. I don't blame the company. They don't have responsibility for us. It's pretty standard to go 3% per every year, right? But because of the inflation and everything, we need more. 3% a year is not gonna cut it. Company obviously doesn't have any responsibility to pay us more because of the government screw up and whatever. So what we need is normal government to look into it and just to cut down the prices. And I completely forgot why I'm talking about it. Anyway, let's continue.
As Trump spoke on just about anything, including again, without prompting, Canada, including again, a dig at the Prime Minister.
I spoke to Governor Trudeau.
Governor.
That's why I talk about it. Trudeau, man. Yeah.
Trudeau, said Trump, reiterating his view Canada would be better off joining America, this time hinting maybe it needs to.
Canadians have responded.
It needs to. I mean, don't get me wrong. It doesn't need to if conservatives will get elected and they put Canada back on the right track. But the way it goes right now, the way liberals are leading the country, we need to become 51st state. So I guess we'll see in the fall, after the election, if we need to join the US or if we have any hope. Because right now, our only hope, and again, I'm immigrant, so you can hold it against me, but right now the only hope is that something's gonna change, that the conservatives will get the power and just guide us to the promised land. Or in this case, it's not even a promised land, it's just guide us to somewhere where we can survive with our salaries.
By canceling trips to the US, booing the US anthem, and the biggest outpouring of anti-American sentiments.
This is ridiculous. Like, come on, people. Come on, Canadians. Don't hate on the US. Like, they're not source of our issues. Like, even with the tariffs and everything, it's not because of them that we have such a struggles right now. Like, yeah, because of the tariffs, it's gonna be harder once it goes to the effect, right? But that's not a reason why we're suffering right now.
Sentiment that I've seen in my lifetime.
They're just feeling a lot of betrayal, and really what they've shared with me is broken trust. They're deciding with their dollars where they're going, and it's anywhere but the US right now.
I've been following the US coverage or lack thereof.
Like I said, that's just a Canadian pride, and like I love that about Canadians. I love that about this country, and I see how you're proud on your country. But then at the same time, like, you still need to be smart. One thing is to die protecting your country, and one thing is to die because your country just doesn't give a fuck about you. And in this case, by your country, I mean the government, right? So like I understand that they feel betrayed by US even mentioning this, but look who actually betrayed you. It wasn't US.
And it's clear that a lot of Americans don't quite realize how much this has rattled us. So in this video, I want to explain the Canadian perspective. The suggestion of Canada becoming the 51st state reflects a basic lack of understanding of our country on multiple levels. First of all, Canada is a federation of provinces and territories in broadly the same way that the US is a federation of states. Provinces have their own identities and their own governments that handle big-ticket items like healthcare and education.
Didn't I say that before, that I wonder how they would handle it, since we have provinces with our provincial law? So if Canada becomes 51st state, what's going to happen to the provinces? Because you can't have state divided into provinces and each province has a different law. So would it really be like 51st state, or would it be multiple states, like each province being its own state? Or would we just delete the provinces, which would never agree with, no one agree with? Because, yeah, people, even in those provinces, are proud. And each province has a different identity. So, yeah, it's...
Ontario's provincial budget is over $200 billion a year. Alberta and Quebec take different approaches to taxation and social services, just like California versus Texas. French-speaking Quebec in particular has a lot of independence. It even has its own separate tax collection agency.
Oh yeah, French-speaking Quebec is just mooching on everyone else. For some reason, every other province have to pay them money to improve their quality of life, apparently. Ridiculous.
See, abolishing provinces to make Canada a state would be like abolishing states in the US. Talking about Canada becoming the 51st state is a dead giveaway that someone doesn't see Canada as a real place with its own internal political structure.
Yeah, no, I really think it, if this would ever happen, the provinces would have to go as a separate states, and each province would have to vote on it. So let's say, I mean, it's hard because how can you become a US state if you're, let's say, in the middle of the Canada, right? Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, no one would agree with abolishing provinces for sure.
If somehow Canada became a part of the US, we'd be up to 13 states. But the idea that Canadians are clamoring to join the US is just not true. If you know anything about Canada, you'd know that English Canadians don't like being confused for Americans, while French Canadians are protective of their language and sensitive about being a minority in an ocean of English.
Oh my god, don't get me started on Quebec, man. I already said more than I should have. But yeah, honestly, to be fair, I feel like Canada should strive towards abolishing provinces on its own, because how is it possible that some province have it better than the other? Like, shouldn't we strive to make it equal, to make the same conditions for everyone, try to make the best conditions we can for everyone? Like, I understand that each province has a different identity, but if we're still consider those provinces as a Canadian provinces, like, how is it possible that some province has a advantage comparing to some other province? And I don't mean like environment, escarpment, or whatever. Like, obviously we cannot do anything about it, but like, some provinces have better taxes, better laws than some other provinces, right? I feel like that's something, it's kind of unseen in Europe, so maybe that's why it's hard for me to grasp. But like that's something I feel like Canada should do first, try to make it really like best quality of life for everyone. I know it's kind of utopia, it might be naive from me, but yeah.
Neither is predisposed to joining the US. It's nothing personal. Most Canadians visit the US often and have friends, family, and fond memories there. But we don't consider ourselves the same or want to merge politically. And we have the same sensitivities that a lot of smaller countries have to being absorbed politically or culturally by a larger neighbor. Americans visiting Toronto or Vancouver might not find that Canada feels all that foreign and isn't as different as going to another continent, but there are more differences under the hood than you might realize. We have a different system and tradition of government that's generally more stable and less dysfunctional. Problems like gerrymandering and government...
Less dysfunctional? Really, dude? Are you liberal?
Shutdowns don't exist here. Crime, in particular violent crime, isn't as big of a problem. Toronto is 1/10 the murder rate of Chicago. Guns exist, but we have stricter laws and a more responsible gun culture focused more on hunting, sport, and rural uses. Our education culture is more egalitarian, with more consistency in public schools and less status differentiation based on where you went to university.
Okay, I agree with the status differential, and I don't really can talk about the school because I'm sorry, I don't feel like the schooling system is on the same level as most of the European countries over here. But yeah, what was the other point? Damn, that's the one I wanted to talk about. But yeah, like the crime and everything's getting worse, man. Like, I don't know where this guy is living talking about it, but like you hear about more shooting and stuff now than 4 years ago. Like, Canada's obviously going the wrong way. And like I said, something needs to change.
We have different norms around the role of religion in politics. We have stronger social programs. We had a baby recently, and the experience was vastly different than it would be in the US, with free
Oh yeah, for sure. Wait, with free what?
hospital care, a year of paid maternity leave, and for the future, subsidized daycare here in Quebec.
Oh, he's from Quebec. There we go. Why am I even watching this video? Go to hell, Quebec, dude. No one wants you, not even US, dude. Just become country on your own. Apparently they wanted to. And when the rest of the Canada was like, yeah, go for it, they were like, you know what, no. Because they would lose money. Because they have freaking support from every province in Canada for some stupid reason. It's ridiculous. But anyway, yeah, like I agree, having a kid is definitely better in Canada than in the US. Like 1 year maternity leave, better than nothing, right? And then I'm looking at Europe. At Czech Republic, actually, because I can't speak for anyone else. But 3 years sounds better than 1 year, right? After 3 years, your kid can go to preschool. So that means the mom can go back to work and help with the finances. And I guess that might be reason why, at least I think, the mental health in Europe is much better than in Canada and the US. So yeah, 1 year, don't get me wrong, it's great. But after 1 year, if I want to put my boys somewhere in not a preschool but daycare, it's freaking gonna kill my finances. Like, there's literally no reason for my wife to go back to work because most of it is gonna go for daycare, car, gas, insurance. So in the end, she's gonna make what I make in 2 overtime shifts. Ridiculous. So yeah, definitely better than the US, don't get me wrong. But still, there's a lot of work that needs to be done for this.
Canada's not perfect. I wish our economy was more diversified. Getting a regular family doctor is difficult in many places. We have an awful housing crisis. I wish we had faster trains. I don't love our first-past-the-post voting system. But there are meaningful reasons to be attached to our country and its existence as an independent entity separate from the United States. And more fundamentally, it's up to us. New Zealand has the right to be a separate country from Australia, even if they have a lot of similarities. Belgium, Switzerland, and Austria can exist, even if they share languages with larger neighbors. Before this ordeal in more normal times, you could have potentially gotten support from Canadians for an agreement on freer movement between the two countries, but the idea of merging with the US would have been fringe and far-fetched. Now that it's an outside threat backed by bullying language and policy, it's scary and insulting, and Canadians are recoiling from the US rather than feeling invited closer. This American news host is confused and even offended that Canada doesn't want to join the US.
Again. Yeah, man. No, but again, I feel like Canada right now, it's all about Canadian pride. Like, obviously they don't want to join US, and I feel it over here. I live in Canada, right? I get that. But if nothing changes with the upcoming election, they're gonna have to. Well, no, obviously it's not going to happen, right? But they would love to. If liberals remain in power, they just keep destroying Canada. Look, pretty much like Democrats in the US. So unless Conservatives Party get the power, it would be the best for Canada to join the US. Yeah, right? It's it's crazy what's going on here. Like, Trudeau, Prime Minister, announced that he's going to resign once they find his replacement as a head of the Liberal Party. And that was a month, 2 months ago. Nothing happened since then. Obviously, he's going to be in power since next election. And if he wins, obviously he's not going to resign. It's like cockroach. Like, I'm sorry, but it's like cockroach. So yeah, something needs to change. And obviously, Trudeau and Liberal Party, they're not going to take the example from Trump and Republicans. No, they're going to still do their own shit, whatever's good for them. And we don't care about the normal people. So, yeah, like I said, right now, I get why Canadians are against it. But long run, if nothing changes this year,
because if I were a citizen of another country and I was a neighbor of the United States, I would consider it a privilege to be taken over by the United States of America. That's what everybody else in the world wants. America.
Okay, that's kind of cringe. Yeah, I'm from Europe. Obviously, we idolize US, and I always want to live in US. But seeing some like anchorman or whatever he is to actually say it, that people should feel privileged, that's a different story. Like, during these last 4 years, DEI and the crazy stuff that was going in the US, like, US doesn't have a best reputation right now. Like, I know Trump is making it better for sure. Like, I'm Trump's supporter, but yeah, it's kind of cringe to hear him saying it.
American citizenship, for some reason that's repellent to you Canadians. And I find that personally offensive, Premier.
Setting aside the stunning disrespect,
I think the momentum is going away from woke stuff. Thank God. Yeah, no, for sure. Like, in the US, it seems like they finally crushed it. Because, yeah, like, why should it get such exposure when in the end we don't care what you do behind the closed doors? Just hire whoever's the best for the position, right? No matter skin color, immigration status. How did even the sexuality become to play a role in the hiring process? Like, who cares? If the girl is better than guy for the position, just hire the girl, and vice versa, right? Exactly, most qualified, hire based on merit. And yeah, hopefully now with Trump everything's getting better. Well, the one thing I'm afraid about the US is that if by some miracle Democrats will win in 4 years, I'm really afraid they're gonna try to walk it back. But at the same time, I have faith in Americans that they won't vote for them unless Democratic Party changes something significantly, because it's just ridiculous. Even all of these discussions between Kamala and Donald, it's like she was so delusional, thinking like everything's perfect in the US and people just want it to stay the way it is. It's more similar to Canada than you would think. Same story, man.
Respect for a premier leading a province larger than all but 4 states, I have to wonder if this mindset of American exceptionalism partly stems from how the US-Mexico border and illegal immigration are so central to American politics, especially on Fox, creating the illusion that the whole world is desperate to be American. I'm sure that's not true even for the developing world, but it's definitely not true for the rest of the developed world.
Well, whole world wants to be American. No, but they want to have the same quality of life as US. And another thing is, again, me coming from Europe, we're not as proud on, especially in my country. The only reason or only time we're proud Czech people is during hockey championship, Olympics, and all of this. But other than that, like, we complain about our country all the time. I moved from my country in 2016. Like, we're not that proud, and I think in Europe in general it's very similar. So everyone idolizes US. Everyone wants the same quality of life they used to have and they will have again in US. Land of opportunity, all of this. So maybe officially or saying that they want to be part of US is far-fetched. But there's definitely a little bit of truth behind it.
Also, if you're looking for more states, you don't even have to look beyond your borders. There are already places like DC and Puerto Rico that lack statehood. Those are US citizens without full voting rights. It doesn't send a good signal for how you would treat a conquered Canada. Many dismiss all this talk of the 51st state as just bluster.
Wait, what are we talking about, conquered Canada? Like, if Canada decides being part of US, it would be by some democratic vote or something. It's not like US would invade Canada. But again, what do you expect from the guy from Quebec?
Or joking from a president known for hyperbole. He's not going to invade you. Well, he clearly has territorial expansion on his mind. Just ask our friends in Panama and Denmark.
Greenland have been part of the Danish kingdom for 800 years. It is not for sale. Let me put it in words you might understand. Mr. Trump, f*** off.
No, I don't think a US invasion of Canada is especially likely. But when the probability shifts from 0 to even 5%, that's still on.
Okay, the first time I visited US, it was New York. I flew to New York. And just seeing this view or this screen, obviously I know it's not New York, but all of these flags reminds me the way I felt the first time I landed in the US. Everyone is so proud to be American. You can feel it everywhere. You don't even need to talk to people. You just walk the city and you feel it. And that's one of the things I really love about the US. For me, it was the first time being in the US in general, right? Like, I was smitten by New York. And one thing I like about New York is that it reminds me the capital city of Czech Republic, because you can literally walk everywhere. Like, you can see everything you want by just walking. You don't need to use cabs or anything like that. So it was definitely a nice experience, but I wouldn't want to live in New York. I'm not gonna lie. Like, not with kids, dogs, anything. It's just, yeah, I don't know, man. Not my cup of tea nowadays.
Honestly, pretty chilling. The most concrete threat isn't an invasion, though, it's steep tariffs, taxes, and American companies importing things from Canada to cripple our economy. We're a small country beside a big country, and our economy relies a lot on trading with the US.
I've never been in Colorado. I definitely want to visit one day. But yeah, I actually, right now I live in Alberta, so I see the Rockies. I bet it's going to be a similar view like you guys have in Colorado, but yeah.
He's threatened across-the-board tariffs on all imports from Canada and Mexico, as well as targeted higher tariffs on key Canadian industries like aluminum and automotive.
It's shift change at this Windsor assembly plant, the city's largest employer, and workers like Jonathan Klein are on edge.
I got two.
It's ridiculous. Obviously, the tariffs won't be great for Canada, but like I mentioned, it's not our biggest issue. Like, the quality of life for last 4 years didn't suffer. Like, we didn't suffer because of the idea that Trump might get reelected and comes up with tariffs, right? Like, yeah, it's not going to be great for Canadians, but it's not going to be a reason why quality of life nowadays suck in Canada. So, and again, maybe it's going to be the push people need to realize that we have a lot of stuff here that for some reason we import from some other countries. So maybe start taking care of your citizens more than about the profit, which obviously is naive and everything. But yeah, you guys are like on the way to communism up there. Well, I was born while we were occupied by Russia. I heard so many stories. Like when you had to wait in a queue to get stupid bananas and stuff like this. My mom was waiting for like a month to get Levi's from US. Yeah, like, I don't think it's old school communism, but definitely it's not a good thing. And one interesting thing about communism back in Europe is that they actually took care of the families. Like, my mom and dad, when they had me, they got apartment, they got a car. Obviously they had to pay a little bit for the apartment, but it was like they just got it assigned. I was born and they got apartment, car, whatever, right? So it had a lot of cons, definitely. And hopefully it will never come back, this era. But one thing they did good is took care of the young families, because they understood that you need to grow the population, right? But yeah, what's going on over here? You're right. Like, it's a good comparison, communism, especially during COVID, right? Getting censored on the Facebook. Like, normal people post something about COVID on Facebook and it get deleted and you get warning and stuff like this. And then the whole protest against COVID in Ottawa, where they froze people's bank accounts and criminally charged them, even though they kind of occupied the center of the city, but they didn't really do anything. Yeah, I would definitely agree with it. That's nice. It's just unfortunate that it's not set up so the families can't get those things themselves. Yeah, like, that's what I miss, and that's what I moved to Canada for. originally that if you work hard, if you get a good job, you can buy the house, you can have a car, you can have a good quality of life, right? But in the last 4 years, it changed that I have much better job than I had when I bought a house, and I'm still struggling to keep my house. It's ridiculous. Like it's really going downhill.
Little kid story about. So, yeah, I definitely didn't sleep very well last night hearing about this news.
But you know what? The betrayal from Americans, it's horrible.
It's devastating. It'll devastate us, and it'll impact quickly.
The Financial Post called it an economic earthquake with the potential to.
I don't like with the word betrayal from Americans. Like, I feel like they're doing what's best for them, and that's definitely what they should. Like Trump, I feel like he's doing or trying to do what's best for his citizens, for American citizens, and once they have a good quality of life, then they can help other countries. I'm sorry, but with Ukraine, don't send up millions, billions to Ukraine when your own people are having bad quality of life. Like, you're sending money of the taxpayers to some different country when your own country is not okay. That's treason. Like, how is this normal? Unless they put on referendum on some vote that people can vote if they agree with it. That's treason to me. Like, you pay taxes so some other country, I know they're at war, but still, like, you're taking money from normal people to support the war. It's not even like they send the money there being like, okay, here, you have these 50 billions, but you need to negotiate peace. No, they were just supporting it, and who knows who was making profit out of it. Exactly, corruption. And now, finally, well, you saw the USAID. Do I need to say more? Like, obviously, corruption everywhere. Or, well, maybe it was really, really good musical, right, in Ireland, and it would improve the quality of Hollywood in the US, like, we don't know, right?
To obliterate jobs, cripple industries, and leave millions of Canadians financially stranded. The sheer
Newsflash, millions of Canadians are already financially stranded.
Scale of likely job losses is staggering. Imagine that your biggest ally and trading partner decides to threaten your economy with a deep recession on a whim.
Imagine that your biggest ally decides and he's gonna care about his own people for a while.
Friends like this, who needs enemies? Calm down, it's just a tactic to get a good deal with Canada, some people say online. Well, we had a deal. It was called the USMCA, and it was the best and most important trade deal ever made by the USA.
Give my highest regards to Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau. I'll tell you, it's
not on a whim, it was so overdue. I mean, yeah. Like, for me, how I see it, what's my idea of why this is gonna happen. Obviously, Trump putting on tariffs, it's gonna make the produce and whatever comes from Canada more expensive for the Americans as well, right? What it's gonna accomplish is that people will buy more local. People will support more local. And if you heard some of the interviews with Trump prior elections, that sounds like what he wanted to do. He wanted to support local businesses. He wanted to move the manufacturing from all over the world to US and give benefits to the companies that will decide to work from US, right? So yeah, I agree. It's not on the whim. It's kind of logical decision to me, at least. Thanks, man. Thanks, I appreciate it.
Turned out to be a very, very good deal for both. and a very, very good deal for all three. We have big deficits with Canada, like we do with all countries. I mean, I look at some of the deals made, I say, who the hell made these deals are so bad?
We know who did that. Someone who got, what was it? Damn, I lost that word. Not amnesty. Was it amnesty? No, it wasn't amnesty. Someone, what's the word I'm looking for? The Biden gave it to his whole family. Immunity? No. Pardon? Yeah, I think that's a pardon. That's who made the deals. Yeah. Biden and his whole family, and then they got pardoned for 10 years straight, and no one even knows what they did during those 10 years.
What about the other complaints with Canada? The US does have a trade deficit. Americans buy more from Canada than vice versa, but it's modest and mostly due to energy. It turns out that Americans buy a lot of oil and gas, which is not a subsidy to Canada. Canada is not a large...
Didn't I say that? I was talking about it, how ridiculous it is that Canada and US, obviously, we produce oil. Like, you can see oil fields everywhere. But somehow what we're doing is selling it somewhere to Europe, or Canada sells it to US. And then for the Canadian citizens, we buy it from abroad as well. How ridiculous. Then obviously people are struggling. Why are we buying something from, let's say, US or Europe, something that we have over here? Ridiculous.
Large source of fentanyl either. You can go on the U.S. Customs and Border Protection website to see that they seized about 22,000 pounds of fentanyl last year, and only 43 pounds, 0.2% of the total, were associated with the Canadian border. Meanwhile, the U.S. is the major source.
Fentanyl, that's another funny thing. I don't know if you heard, but apparently they legalized some drugs in Vancouver a while ago, just because they were trying to lower like overdose and stuff like this, and the whole city just become like walking zombies, because out of nowhere they can shot for without any fear from the cops or something like that. So yeah, like I'm not surprised Trump is trying to make like demands regarding the drugs and stuff like this, because it's ridiculous, obviously. Yeah, I feel like unfortunately the drug problem is bad everywhere, but if normal people can see that there is a drug problem, that's really bad. Because I remember in my own country, I didn't know that we have drug problem until I spoke to one. I don't know if I can say that she was recovered addict, like she was addicted to, I think, heroin when she was like 16 years old, from 16 to 17, ridiculous. But then the stories she told me, I was like, I didn't know Czech Republic has an issue with drugs. So like once the public starts seeing it, that's really bad. I know a few people that have passed away in the last few years. Sorry to hear it, man. Addiction is one of the worst things, and it's more and more, and it's not just drugs. Like even some of the normal foods, they put all of these stuff that makes you addicted to it. It's ridiculous. Like drugs kill you fast, but food, that keeps eating you slowly, man. Maybe it doesn't take your brain out of nowhere, but yeah. Yeah, I hope so, man. RFK that's a dude. And it's just, I don't know if you're watching Asmongold, but I definitely share his viewpoint on kids that are obese. Like, the parents should just go to prison. Like, it's just freaking neglect, it's abuse, it's child abuse. Like, if you let the kid get into the state that they're not able to run or anything, that's freaking ridiculous. Anyway, let's try to finish this. Maybe Quebec guy has some more stuff that's gonna make me mad.
Of illegal guns and drugs into Canada, but they don't seem to take responsibility for this in the way that they hold Mexico and Canada responsible.
Police in the city seized over 352 handguns, the majority smuggled from the U.S.
Vastly more amount of drugs coming to Canada from the U.S. than vice versa.
I mean, okay, guns kill people, but I still think the drug issue is a little bit bigger than the guns. Like you don't hear about the whole city having a huge freaking gang war or something like that in Canada comparing to the drugs, right? So many people got brainwashed that being fat is okay. Oh, don't get me started, man. Every time I go to the mall and we pass the Victoria's Secret store, and as a guy, obviously I look, right? And I'm like, when did this become okay? How is this lady a model? Like, I'm not saying you need to be skinny. I'm not saying you need to be crazy muscular. But, like, even the kids are looking at it, right? Like, it should be someone you can look up to. Like, when I was a kid, some of the actors, like Vin Diesel, how fit he was. That was I wanted to look like that. When I started working out, that's who I was thinking about, right? Like, oh, I want to be like Vin Diesel. But nowadays it's like, you want to look like this? You don't even have to try for it. You have to eat more to look like that. It's just ridiculous. Like, it's like the bar is so low nowadays. Like, the kids don't have enough role models. And yeah, like, I feel like the parents should be role models for the kids. But they definitely need someone outside of the circle as well. Exactly, yeah. Yeah, I grew up before the whole mobile phone era. My mom was calling to my best friend's mom on the landline just to let them know that I should go home, right? Or my grandma was open the window and shout to the yard that I'm supposed to go home, because that's how we lived back then, outside of the house. Even when I started playing video games, it was like, okay, I'm gonna play with my buddies soccer for 4 hours and then maybe play video games later, like whatever, right? Like, we were moving all the time.
It is true that Canada doesn't spend enough on defense. We spend 1.4% of our GDP, below the NATO target of 2% that we agreed to. But fixing this wouldn't be a payment to the US. It would be spending more money to build up our military and capabilities. After this ordeal, there's a pretty good chance that we will reach the target, except that it might be to protect us from you. Many Americans will say, well, I didn't vote for this. Most of these threats didn't materialize until after the election, so I'm not sure anyone really voted for this. But what's really strange is how many people jumped in to defend and justify it after the fact. Twitter suddenly became a place where everyone hates Canada? Hating Canada became the current...
Oh, that's so funny. Canada isn't a country, it's a crime syndicate disguised as a neoliberal cult. And a very large proportion of its citizens have a Stockholm syndrome. I agree with it, man. It's crazy. I mean, well, yeah, crime syndicate. I mean, to me, that's a good take. I'm sorry, but yeah. Like, even during the COVID, right? Like, who do you think was having a company for all of these 6 feet away stickers? Premier of Ontario. And he was selling it all over the place. So how do you want to trust people like this? I know it's not just Canada. Like, I spoke to people from Italy, from Greece, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Poland. Like, all the governments are corrupted, but yeah, this is a good take. I'm not gonna complain against it.
Thing. When Canada announced her own counter tariffs, the governor of Texas, among many others, basically responded with, "How dare you defend yourself?" People who would be the first to describe themselves.
It is ridiculous. Like, I don't think to come up with the response to the tariffs is to come up with your own tariffs. I think that's gonna end up as some ridiculous war between politicians while normal people are suffering. That's might be a stupid take, but I don't think that's appropriate response. Obviously, Canadians might feel like it's not fair to face tariffs, but just think about the normal people, man. Don't try to retaliate. But again, it's Trudeau, right? What would we expect from him?
As patriotic Americans won't tolerate patriotism or even basic self-respect from citizens of other countries? That's not a relationship or even a negotiation based on reason, shared values, long-term thinking, or reciprocity. It's a blatant power play and desire for domination. It's clear that some American conservatives have polarized themselves into hating Canada because of Justin Trudeau, seemingly unaware that he was resigning and that his Liberal Party, after a decade in power, was set to be trounced by the Conservative Party this year. In the past month, the race has gotten much tighter.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. I saw some we don't hate Canada, we hate him. Yep. For sure. He's such a joke, man. It's a teacher of the acting or whatever he was. Like I said, I don't care what people did before their current position as long as they're good on their current position. But he's not. He's just corrupted. He's not a people's servant. He doesn't do anything for people who elected him. Like, that's what I liked about Arnold. Whatever governor he was, he always thought about giving back to the people who elected him. Like, he understood that he got elected by people and he is their servant, pretty much. So even though he wasn't a good governor of California, I feel like the mindset was there.
The only thing giving the Liberals a fighting chance is the opportunity to stand up to U.S. bullying and belittling, which is jet fuel for Canadian patriotism.
Numerous polls had the Conservatives with a 20-plus point lead over the Liberals at the start of 2025. Now, it's single digits, thanks to U.S. President Donald Trump's consistent threats against Canada.
How do you blame Trump for elections in Canada? And again, let's be honest, it's just about the polls, right? Like, every poll in the US was against Trump, and guess who won? Trump, right? But how do you even come to the idea that if Conservative Party will lose, it's because of Trump? That's ridiculous. Oh, really? Was he the last Republican government? Or, sorry, governor? I did not know that. I mean, to be honest, like LA, I loved LA to be there as a tourist, to go to the Gold's Gym and all of the old school stuff. But the LA, it's just a different world, man. It's fun to visit. Just turn off your brain and visit it, right? But you can't really think too much, because comedy stores. Oh yeah, never been. I just pretty much just went to the Gold's Gym, and one day I went to the Gold's Gym at like 4 a.m. before the flight, and I was on the phone with my wife, and she's like, oh yeah, take the walk on the Venice Beach. And I was there during the day, right? But never at like 6 a.m. And I'm like, you sure it's safe? So I went there. Tent city, man. I'm 6'4", but I felt a little bit uneasy over there at 6 a.m. Not gonna lie. It's where all the big comedians would do stand-up before they left Cali. Oh man, now I miss I didn't go there. That would be definitely cool. Let's see if there's something to finish. You stayed at the art district and you were a block away. That's good. Oh yeah. Okay. Maybe one day. Maybe, yeah, Tent City, man. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you stayed a block away from the Tent City. Oh man. Like even during the day, like you see the homeless people a lot at the Venice Beach. But because there's just so many people in general, you don't really pay attention to it, right? But if you go there in the morning, it's sad. It's very sad to see. Like my reaction's a little bit different because yeah, in LA it's not cold. Like over here it was -30, right? So if it happened here, it's brutal. So over there at least the weather's kind of bearable. But if you think about it, it's crazy that the government allowed this to happen, and everyone knows about it. For me, I don't want to say that I'm insensitive to this topic, because obviously there's a lot of reasons why people might become homeless, right? One thing is government, financial situation, whatever. One thing might be mental health. But I feel like there's always some work you can do. Like I worked at Amazon for 2 years during COVID just to have some job. Wasn't the greatest job, but guess what? They didn't even look if I have high school education before they hired me. So there's a lot of people who definitely can work, but then again, are you able to afford living in there? I don't know. Well, LA is blue, right? Blue state. That says something. Actually, I'm planning to talk about LA fire chief. There's some news with her.
I wanted to make this video because I've seen a lot of American coverage.
Okay, no, I'm over this guy. Okay, what else we have here?